Why did AI make fun of my performance review? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the Northwoods, talking about how AI can make your life better, one small step at a time. So I had a day a couple of days ago that I did not expect to have. I sat down to do something I genuinely dread every year, and it's my performance evaluation. I just did another podcast about it yesterday, about why performance evaluations are more important than you think they are and how to have a different opinion about them, because I've been screwing it up for years. And what fixed me of this whole situation was AI. So what started out is a task, writing task. You write your self-performance evaluation, and I wrote mine, and I wanted to have AI take a look at it to see if I was doing a proper job. And by the end of the day, I had AI help me see my own years more clearly than I could have seen myself. And then I built a team that my entire team could use so they could do the same kind of thing. So this is the story I'm going to tell you today. Every year, I write a self-evaluation for work, and you summarize your accomplishments, your projects, your goals, your contributions, and you package up the entire year into a professional document, and I have never enjoyed this particular process. I think part of it is personality. I'm from the Midwest. We're not a very boasty group. We don't talk about ourselves. We do the work. We let the work speak for itself. And if someone compliments us on it, we say, it was nothing. We change the topic. Or we say, it was a team effort. It wasn't me. And we make excuses about it. The other part of it is that the time of the review season, the year has already blurred. You've already moved on to your next project. You probably don't even remember what you did last year. And it just kind of dissolves into a general sense of having been very busy this last year. So I wrote my self-review entirely as a summary of my work, and I thought I knew exactly what it was. And when I had ChatGPT take a look at it, it made fun of me. It said, "You write your performance review like I did some stuff and nobody died." What? You write your performance review like you unloaded the dishwasher, and that is the kind of impact your work had this past year. And I just couldn't believe it. I mean, I've been busy. I completed goals. I worked on major projects. I've been working on a certification. I have done audits. I've supported users and wrote documentation. And so when I looked back at the year, maybe I wrote it in a very ordinary term, and it's probably because I just live one day at a time, right? We all just get through the day of work as we're supposed to do. So initially, I wrote my own self-performance review off the top of my head by sort of looking at my calendar and seeing what it was. So then I decided to do something entirely different. Instead of just doing it the way I had been doing it, I thought about it. I have status reports, I had project updates in emails, I have calendar entries that go back the whole year, I have training records, I have documentations, presentations that I've written and that I've given. I had folders full of things that I didn't really think about entirely. The evidence of my last year existed, and I wasn't using it to the best of its ability. So then I started building prompts. The funny story, it came by, I started thinking about it, not because I have a podcast about AI and this should have been a natural idea for me to think about, but my friend said that her company gave her review software, self-review, like performance review software, and she typed nothing in and hit enter, and it wrote a bunch of stuff anyway, even though she didn't put anything in it. And suddenly I thought, well, wait a minute. If Copilot, which is what we use at my work, which is connected to Microsoft. A lot of people have Copilot at their jobs, has access to all my files and all my emails and everything in it. Can I actually do a better job with it? So what I first asked it to do is I first asked it to review my status reports. These are the emails that I sent to my supervisor about what I did this past week. Completed work and deliverables. Okay, great. Then I asked it to look at my calendar and look at the patterns, meetings, names of people, initiative I was in there, and not summarize the individual meetings, but basically try to find projects behind them. Not all those projects were going to be mine. Some of them are just me going there. And then I actually had it go through my sent emails in general and look for common a work and effort that I've done, takeaways, follow-ups, places where I helped customers in my organization do things. And I asked it in 3 separate prompts to go through those 3 separate items and write up a possible list of each accomplishment. I gave it indicators that I don't want you to make anything up. I don't want you to find things I didn't do. I want an accurate listing of the things that I was involved with. And then I would go through and sift it to make sure, some of those projects, like I said, might have been my coworkers, not mine. And then at the very end, I saw it and I had projects I forgot about, initiatives that stretched across month, documentation of things that I have written about and then just forgot about, responsibilities that I filed under, well, it's just part of the job, that were actually significant with sustained effort, places where I answered people's emails and helped them roll out certain aspects of software. And so it wasn't creating a story, it was actually uncovering the story that was already there. So one example is I worked on a major integration project this year. And if you asked me to summarize it, I probably would have said something like, hey, I worked on an integration, it went okay. And when AI saw the evidence after, so I gave it my self-appraisal, and then I went back and wrote these prompts and dredged out all this information about what I actually worked on. The fourth part of it then is I asked AI to combine all these things and write a self-performance review on the things I'm graded on. Am I a project manager? Am I a software owner? Am I a software manager? Do I help my customers do their jobs properly? And so I gave it broad categories. And so it took those 3 prompts that I wrote and then wrote up my own self-appraisal. So then I thought, okay, well, I have the one I wrote, and now I have the one it wrote, and now I can use those and combine them to make it better. But why don't I use AI to combine them, to help look at them together to see what I missed about it? And so when I then gave AI this second appraisal, where it saw evidence of year-long initiatives, testing suites, process documentation, workflow design, stakeholder coordination among multiple teams, going live with an integration, resolving issues under pressure. And when it went through and I said, hey, can you look at these 2 documents, compare them, and see if they're any different? This is when ChatGPT started to make fun of me, because it basically was stunned. You said, and it made fun of me, that you wrote your performance evaluation like I did some stuff and nobody died. And AI disagreed. It told me that my problem wasn't confidence, that it was scale, that it didn't see in my document the scale and the size of the things I worked on. And that was quite stunning. And then it, like I said, it said that I talked about the importance of my work as if I was unloading a dishwasher. And I know this about myself. I'm not someone who lacks, confidence in my work. I know what I'm doing. I feel like I do a good job when I work with people. I know when something is hard, and I know when I handled something well. But the confidence and the scale are 2 different things. You can be confident in the work you're doing, but still compress an entire year into, well, I did some stuff. And when I look back at the year, it told me, I don't see these accomplishments. I see that you went to meetings, you sent emails, you had conversations, instead you don't see how these projects are actually impacting things. That you don't see how hard I worked through things, the pens I broke in half trying to deal with difficult situations. And those situations, that happened throughout the course of this year essentially were, effort that I was doing, not only in getting something done, but giving great customer service to situations that might have been frustrating, being calm on camera, being professional all the time. That's something too. And so what AI pointed out is that nobody sees, of course, when you're in a Zoom meeting, the stress, the uncertainty, they see the outcome, the product launched, the certification was completed, the users were supported, and the goals were achieved throughout all of this. And so AI was evaluating my year, not just on how difficult it was, maybe from what I felt on the inside, but basing it on what existed when it was over, the accomplishments that I had. And those are two different lenses. And so the reaction I got was very interesting. When AI handed back my first draft and of my review, and immediately the reaction was, oh, come on. It had used a phrase. It said that you used a phrase instead of led a major cross-functional initiative, assumed full ownership, coordinated across multiple business technical teams. My brain saw it as bragging, and it called me out on it. And when I went back and looked for evidence of it, I looked for it. So I'm like, yeah, it's right. It's right. I did do those things. It's not bragging on my behalf. I was a point person. I was a subject matter expert. I specifically, had leadership and project management and collaboration over the course of the year. AI wasn't inflating anything. It was connecting the dots that I wasn't connecting myself. And it was taking on a language that had already existed in my own record and organizing it into something that was more coherent and had evidence of my work. And then I understood something that I think a lot of us get wrong, that humility is not the same thing as inaccuracy. Humility might say, well, shucks, I didn't do this alone. We all have a lot to learn. What I was saying was I barely did anything, and that was inaccurate. Here's what I thought was being humble, that I was downplaying what I had done, what instead, through this process with AI, that the performance review is not the place to pretend that things didn't happen. This is a place for you to tell an accurate story so that your manager needs to have that story. So if they take them into an alignment meeting, or if there ever comes a situation of a raise or promotion, or maybe even a layoff, they have your accurate story of what you do, that you allow your manager to be an advocate for you. And if you hand them something that's weak and it says, I did some stuff, they don't really have much to work with. And the detail, that I almost didn't mention is that, I'm working through a certification right now, and it's a pretty big deal. It's a coursework. I took the practice test. I submitted the project. I got a 92 on it. And the people even running the certification program were surprised. They said, that's a great score. And the funny thing of it is I was missing one of the classes. So somehow I missed one of the classes and I still got a 92% on my project. That I have done a good job on this project. I'm about to take my final exam in all of this. And like I said, it is a pretty meaty, industry recognized certification. And when you hear, I guess, the whole story, you wouldn't have seen that in there. You wouldn't have seen that story in there because that's how I operate. I operate with not really talking about it. I just talk about, I just need to pass. I just need to pass and get this done with. But instead, I really needed to give the complete picture here. And if I told you the same story is the same pattern of that I did in my self-review, no one sees what you're working with. They only see the outcomes. They don't see what was going on inside of you, your frustration, how you try to hold things together, always give excellent customer service, not get into fights with people. And so the question is, when you're writing your self-performance review, are you willing to see it too? AI helped me with that answer. So what happened is I finished my own review and I ended up with something unexpected. I ended up having a really, I think, my best ever performance evaluation, and not because I was being boastful, but because I was giving an accurate story. And so when I shared with my team with what I did, not to show off, but just because I thought, AI can help you through this process of self-appraisal. It can make this entire process easier. Going back and looking at your emails and your calendars and your reports and your identifying your projects and synthesize the whole thing into a narrative. Draft your appraisal that's clean, repeatable, and something that anyone could pick up and run. I essentially wrote prompts for the entire team so they would be able to do it too. And you can do it. Every one of us can do it. And it took something that's particularly painful to me and made it fantastic. It's something that we can take, and my whole team, like I said, I wrote prompts for them. Here they all are. This is what you can run. And within minutes, you can get the same kind of results. The interesting thing about it is that it wasn't just about going back and looking at all my results and finding out all the things I did. That would have been valuable enough. But the fact that it came back to me and told me how I was seeing my own accomplishments through my own eyes and how damaging it was, how I was looking at my own work wasn't about being humble. It was about being inaccurate. It gave me a whole new point of view. And then it gave me a draft that was actually the right tone. Like I said, not bragging, but accurate. That's the real thing. Now, I think that the problem with work and AI right now is there's real tensions out there. We're all wondering, what does it mean for staffing, for unions, for job security? Should I be using AI in my job? I mean, Copilot's right there, and it's a part of Office. Should I be using with it? Will I be fired if I use it? I think that there are leaders out there who are understaffed, hoping that all of us pick this up and start to use AI better so that we can get more things done and take these mundane tasks like writing your performance review and spending less time on it so we can get back to the things that really matter in our jobs. We are being given a useful tool. But honestly, when a useful tool shows up, not everyone is out there cheering. And some people, like I said, are worried that they would get in trouble if they used AI. Some people don't know how to use AI or how to get started on it. And some people, I think, like the supervisors, are hoping that we do a great job of using AI in our jobs. I stuck my neck out and admitted the fact that I had used AI to write my performance review. And I hoped that people weren't going to be mad, that I wouldn't get in trouble for it, because I think that what in the end it did is it helped me build a respectable self-performance. It didn't replace anybody or anyone else's job. It helped articulate the work I had already done. A bunch of activities that were just disappeared from my own performance review. And so I think that the people who figure out how to use these tools thoughtfully, not recklessly, check out the information, make sure it's accurate, but practically are going to be the ones who really matter once the dust settles on all of this AI in the workplace. I think it's going to become very important for us to be the kinds of people who know how to use AI. That when we have AI write an email for us, that we edit it, we look at it, we make sure it's correct, and we just don't send it out to 500 people hoping that, no one will notice the clear mistakes in it. We are still in control of AI, and we have to be the owners of this incredible tool. So in the end, you don't have to try this with a performance review or anything like that, but think about this kind of approach. You need to summarize some work. You need to update something that you're working on. Maybe you're not even in a job right now and you need to update your resume, prepare for an interview. You have to present a project recap. You're applying for a new job. The principle is all the same. Don't start with a blank page. Start with evidence. Let AI help you gather your notes, your emails, your status reports, your calendars, your presentations, your documentation. Think of it as a historian who can look through thousands of pages of information in mere minutes. Your first job is not to create prose when you're writing something up. Your first job is to discover what actually happened. Ask AI to help you find those patterns, help you look at those projects that were sustained over time. What did you actually deliver? What exists now that didn't exist a year ago? Then, when it hands you back something that maybe feels like too much, read it over. Maybe you soften it a little bit, check for evidence of it to make sure that it's accurate, and then let it stand. The discomfort of reading an accurate description of your own work will make you pause for a minute. When I first read its finished evaluation of me, I thought, oh gosh, this is too much. This is too much. I mean, it's said too much. But when I looked at each individual project, it was right. Those were things that I actually worked on. So I think about one area of your life where you've been doing, consistent, sustained effort that you haven't acknowledged about yourself, maybe even to yourself, and use AI to help you gain evidence. The emails, the notes, the outcomes, and then ask AI, what do you see here? What patterns do you see here? And you don't start with, help me sound impressive. You never start that way. Start with, here's what actually helped happen this last year. Help me see it more clearly. You might discover that the things that you've been calling, I did some stuff, is much bigger story than you've been giving yourself credit for. All right, everyone, thanks so much. I appreciate you for being here. This show is about for people who want to use AI in real practical human ways, not to replace their own thinking, but to extend it, to help see patterns, uncover things that you knew were already true and maybe you forgot about. That's what happened to me this week, and I hope it's happening for you too. You can find all my shows at jillfromthenorthwoods.com, and you can reach me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. I would love to know if this genuinely helped you. How are you finding your year with AI? Is AI helping you discover things that you didn't remember? Is it helping you do things that you weren't able to do before? I'd love to hear about it. Thanks so much and have a great day.